All right, looks like we're good. How's it going, man?
It is going wonderful, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah. So now I can't remember. Are you doing the video, or am I? Or you're gonna send
I
it to
think
me, or how's it working?
I'm gonna send it to you, and we'll do, and you can put it. I think we agreed that you would do it on yours, and then I'll put
Yeah,
the
yeah,
audio only on my the podcast page.
yeah. It works. All right. Yeah, and what's cool too is I can kind of link to your channel, and that way maybe we can get some subscribers there for you. So,
Yeah.
but with all that, just a quick shout out all the Truex outdoor sports fans. Thank you guys very much for tuning in, and go and like and subscribe on the Travis Show too. My buddy Travis here. We've been friends for a long time.
Like seventh grade.
Yeah, yeah. I think you
Let's
might
say
have
I
maybe
was 13.
started. Yeah,
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 35
maybe
now.
so. Yeah. Yeah, no, well, yeah. Well, was it sixth grade?
Might have been sixth. I'm just thinking seventh was when I really started hanging out with like
Yeah,
Nick and
yeah.
Frankie, and Amber had moved next door.
Yep,
I
yep.
think that's when I really started hanging out with all of those. Frankie's heading out this way next month.
Is he really?
Mm-hmm.
Where's he
Yep,
going?
him and Savannah and the kids are coming out here to see
Really?
us. Yeah,
Really?
and he's going to go to Boulder and go to look at the Mork and Mindy house. Of course, it's
Okay.
Frankie, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's gonna come out here. We're gonna do some martial arts and some jujitsu and stuff, and have the kids hang out and probably go out and catch bugs and toads and stuff.
Man, that'll feel like a blast from the past, huh?
Yeah, it'll be cool.
Huh. Well, anyway, so some just a little bit more background. Travis and I, since we've known each other, we have done all the hiking and fishing and hunting. Well, not so much fishing. We actually, when we knew each other, we grew up in the desert. So I did some fishing when I lived in Michigan because I kind of lived in part time at both places. But we grew up in the desert there in Nevada, and we used to do survival craft, martial arts, hunting, tracking. Jackrabbits were always fun to hunt. And everything in between. We used to. One of my favorite things that we used to do is we used to go out to his grandparents' property in the middle of nowhere, middle of the desert, as far from any civilization as you can get, basically out there. Which was absolutely incredible to be that far removed from society in a place where it's just so there's just nothing there, so arid, so nothing, and you really are feel like, hey, I'm only with me.
You
I
could
have,
pretend you're the last person on the planet
you
out
really
there.
could.
You could pretend that. Like, you might not run into anybody for days. And if you
Yeah.
do, it's probably a weird person.
So anyways, that's our background. We did a whole lot of martial arts. We've done all this. We both had backgrounds before that where we grew up in the wilderness, learning things, and it just kind of added to our friendship. And then over the years, that friendship has maintained. They say something like if friendship lasts X amount of time, it'll be a forever friendship, right? So
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, right. Forever friendship. No, it really is. It's been incredible. So, guys, that's where we're coming from. And today we're going to talk about outdoor sports stuff, things that are important. Maybe we'll talk about some martial arts. We'll talk about some, survival craft, and that's important too. Yeah, just to get started, Travis, one thing that I'm noticing about really a lot of outdoor people and everything is we don't talk enough about fitness. Particularly when it pertains to not just outdoor sports, but survival craft for really just anything of being prepared. I'm a fat guy, have been my whole life, but I still work out. I run, and I really feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I really feel like if a person is going to really expect to be able to survive anything, they've got to at least be able to do like a 10 mile straight fast walk. To be able to like expect to survive even like an hour if like say poop were to hit the fan, that kind of thing. And so, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that it's like, uh, yeah. I think that you're definitely right. I think a good fast walk for a good 10 miles if you needed to, or let's say you had all your gear, if you needed a all out run, like can you do it at least 100 yards? You know,
Yep.
one time if you need to with
For
your gear
sure.
on. It's not to say you got to be, you know, it's not to say you got to be cut or anything like that. It's just there's probably a minimum physical capacity that a person should hold themselves up to for even not necessarily even for survival, but simple enjoyment of doing the outdoor stuff. You know, if it's too hard for you to go and hike your stuff out and paddle your boat out to the middle of the lake or something, and you're too winded after doing it, it's not fun. And then if it's not fun, you're not going to want to go do it as much. You're going to do you're going to do the keyboard warrior thing, and you know. So if you can keep yourself up to at least just a minimum standard, you know, it'll make even just doing it funner, and then it'll make you that much better at doing it. And then if you can do it for longer, then you get more enjoyment out of it. Tristan and I just went on a hike the other day. We just posted the video up on my YouTube, and
Love that,
just
by the way.
this. What's up?
I love that, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Uh, and just the simple fact that I wasn't, you know, he's a really fit kid for 9 years old. The simple fact that we weren't just huffing and puffing, you know, made it more enjoyable. We were able to go farther into the hike. We were able to climb the rocks and go up to the top pretty much. And you know, how much would you have missed out if you can go that little extra, you know, comfortably?
Yeah, I was actually really impressed watching watching you guys go because I know you're in higher altitude, and I've done that before. And man, I take like 4 or 5 steps, and in those high altitudes, and I'm like,
I mean,
like,
it helps that we live at a mile high, about a mile up, you know. So we live there, so that helps. But yeah, we were about 8,000 feet, so even that's like a pretty high altitude for us. So yeah, and then you know, there's a weird thing with the fitness community in general, where is so much is aesthetics,
yeah,
and that kind of takes away from it because it's like, okay, you go to the gym, you work your arms or whatever, and you get the look that you want. That dude is still going to go out into the woods and be huffing and puffing on the
yep,
mountain. And
yep.
he's still going to have the same problems as the other guy who doesn't look quote unquote as good. So there's a lot of problems in the fitness community in regards to that. So it's not just as simple as looking at fit. Like just get your legs up, do some cardio a little bit, hit some elliptical if you can, or you know, one thing is fitness is free. So
Yeah,
it's like you can go start walking around your block, throw your backpack on, walk around your block a few times if you know, or whatever. Like it's not about this unrealistic body standards or what have you. It's about just having some physical capacity. And obviously I focus a lot on fitness. You follow
yep.
my Instagrams and stuff like that. But you know, again, it's all about functionality for me. I don't even do curls. Like I'm not sitting there trying to look good so much as do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, and like what you said, the fitness is free part. People lose sight of that. Currently, I've lost like 80 pounds or so. I think.
Nice.
I think at my highest, I was like 350, and I was unhappy and unhealthy and working all the time and doing everything, the wrong way, stressed out all the time. Found out I had generalized anxiety disorder, and so it was a long fight, but I finally started taking medication for that, and that's been helpful too. Just getting some of those things in order, that I've had problems with. But that being said, I've lost like 60, 80 pounds, something like that. I think I was, like I said, 350. I'm 280 now. I'm not good at math, so you do the math.
Hey,
Uh,
yeah.
but
That's
the
70.
thing
So
is,
that's
it's
about all right. Yeah.
yeah. So the thing is, though, is I am kind of at a plateau. I can't get past the 280, but my body's still changing. And all I do basically for a workout is I try to take an hour a day, and do just body weight exercises, push ups, sit ups, squats. Do a lot of squats and lunges and things like that. And then I jog, and I'm not, like I said, getting the weight loss that I'm hoping for, but I'm healthier. I'm feeling a ton more energy. I feel like I can do what I need to do. I'm getting back to that area where I need to be effective at doing outdoor sports and survival craft and all those things that, we love so dearly. That's why we decided to start doing what we're doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so one thing that the body does that I've noticed is it wants to do things as efficiently as possible. And when you're thinking of efficiency, people are thinking, well, the better you are at something, the more efficient you are. And yeah, that's true, but that's not what the body does. The body wants to do nothing if it can,
Yeah.
and it wants to store as much as possible if it
Yep.
can. So it once it adapts to a thing. So you set yourself up with like some lunges and some stuff, right? So and then like you said, you kind of hit a plateau. You start getting diminishing returns. That's normal because your body's adapted to that.
Yep.
So like the thing you would want to do is find a way to change your workout. So now you could do a different thing and then constantly keep your body uh, adapting to a new thing. And that takes a lot of creativity sometimes,
It.
like and sometimes that's tiring and it's annoying. Like I do this thing where I do like it's the old Greek style of working out where it's like you got 4 day cycle and you got day one is about 50-60% effort, day two is like 100% effort, and you work all the same muscle groups. You're not working different. You work all of them if you can. Like it's like you're trying to throw your medicine ball, or like doing burpees, or like jumping and running and catching a ball, or things like that. Just dynamic stuff. And then the next day is recovery, focus on stretching. So that's day three, focus on stretching and massage. And day four is focus on technique of whatever activity you're doing, right? And then you restart, and that's a cool way to keep your system. But it's like every 2 or 3 of those 4 day cycles I have to change my workouts. So
Mhm.
I got used to doing like the medicine ball slams. Now that's like not doing anything. I can do 50 of them and it's not gonna. And now I got to go back to doing something else. I
Mhm.
gotta, I gotta use my gymnastic rings, or kettlebells or something. And then I feel like a noob again. I'm like, oh, I do 2 or 3, and so it's like daunting. It can be mentally and emotionally daunting to constantly try to adapt, if you want to get past those diminishing returns
Mhm.
on on your physicality and things like that. But then, like you said, the simple fact that you're doing that bit and you're healthier and you feel better, that's the goal. Like that's really the only goal a person really needs, unless you have the goal of some sort of aesthetic, you
Well,
know.
I mean, like, so I'm happily married to an absolutely beautiful
Mm,
woman, and so like the aesthetics don't matter so much to me,
right.
because I'm not
And it's
trying to
not
attract a mate, But I do get,
exactly.
wanting that, and is it nice when I see that hey, I've got some more defined muscles and everything? Yeah, of course it is.
Well, yeah, who
Uh,
doesn't want to look in the mirror and be all like, I'm seeing a little bit of Jason Momoa in there, just a little, makes you feel good. There's nothing wrong with that. You just don't want to get to the point where it's all about
yeah.
vanity.
Well, because then it's such a shallow motivation and everything, So the motivation, especially for us outdoors people, especially for survival craft, for fishing, for anything that you like to do outdoors, is simply to be able to do it well. Being
Yes.
able to actually do it. And I think that so the fitness aspect of outdoors is really part of a problem of like greater outdoors philosophy, where a lot of people seem to think that they watch a video, they read a book, and they're good. They don't have to practice it. They can just do it now. And that doesn't work. You have to get out, you have to practice the craft.
Yeah. I mean, like try making a friction fire,
Oh,
right?
man.
It's like, and now, I mean, I have had so many learning curves when it comes to friction fires, and I'm okay at friction fires. And in our circle of friends, I'm probably amazing at friction fires, but
Yes.
in the scheme of the world, I'm okay. I'm not that great at them. And I'm gonna take these off. I see that they're reflecting the TV. Probably looks weird. So so take that for example. You can see someone do the video, right? And it could be a very well done instructional video. It can be here's the exact plant, here's the qualities I'm looking for, here's the plant that I'm using I'm using pine for the base, and I'm using a mullein stock for the drill, and those are all really legit points, and it's really good to know the plants that you're using for that particular task. But there's something about the way that that thing feels. There's a
Mhm.
certain dryness you really must have. There's a certain resistance, there's a certain muscle memory, and you cannot get that unless you go do it. It's impossible. And I don't care how many times a guy says it on TV, or how many times, I mean, look, we love Les Stroud. We love Survivor Man, you know, but it doesn't matter how many times he showed you how to do it. It's different. And I've had to learn it
Not
in
for yourself.
Nevada. I had
Yeah.
to learn the plants in Nevada, right? And everything's dry in Nevada, with the exception of like cat's claws, because it's weird because you open them up and all of a sudden they're not dry. Anyways, but everything's dry in Nevada. It barely ever rains. I came out here, it was like, oh, good luck making a friction fire if I really needed to. And then it's more important to learn that sort of a survival skill when you don't need to.
Yeah.
Because imagine doing it 2 days in of not eating, and your legs broken, or your hands broken or something. You got in a car accident in the boonies, and you're stuck, and no one's coming. It's winter time. It's wet. Like all the problems are coming up, and you've done this twice.
Yep.
You know.
And I mean that goes for even so like a friction fire is very difficult. I would say probably like a higher tier level of difficulty in doing something like that. But I mean, let's say even like you have a flint and steel.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not. I mean, it really, when it comes down to it, even building a fire with just if, let's say you have a lighter, if you're not setting up that fire right, you're not going to get that thing lit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of, like, I see, like, like people put on their Instagrams like different ways to make fires, and they'll find these different creative ways to make fires using a lighter. And I've shown it to like guys that I'm friends with, and they're like, well, I mean, he's got a lighter. Why'd he need to do all that other stuff? And I'm like, you don't understand. If the fuel is wet and it just won't catch, and that lighter's low on gas or whatever, you might have to do this creative thing, because you don't get it.
Generally, like, you've never lit a fire, have you?
Right, except for maybe in the best of circumstances, you bought the bundle of wood. It has the tinder bundle in there already. You spend $8 at it from the guy at the campground, and you have a little lighter fluid. That's probably how you lit your fires.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. But I mean, it's just indicative of everything. A lot of times, and I did this as a teenager. I'm sure you did too. Where we get the knowledge, and then we're like, oh, we're good. We can get it set up, and then you get to really push comes to shove, and you have to do it, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, this isn't fun. This isn't what I had fantasized in my mind. And I think it's so important that people understand that the fantasy aspect of it, those good feelings you get when you're like watching it on TV and you're like, or watching on YouTube and you're like, oh, that's so cool. No, there's a lot of work involved. Like even with like the fishing videos I do, you're only seeing the fun stuff. You're only seeing what I show you.
yeah,
So you catch fish after fish after fish. Uh, that's fun. Yeah, you're gonna love that. But what you're gonna really come to reality with is you go out there and you're baiting your hook and you're waiting hours or sometimes minutes. It depends on. A lot of times you think, oh, you just go out in the lake and do it. No, you have to know where the fish are. You have to pattern them. You have to know what you're expecting. And so all of these things need to be practiced out. And you need to understand that it's not this fantasy idea. Oh, if I've seen it done, I can do it. No, I've seen it done. Now I have to go learn it and put it into practice. I have to make if I want this kind of lifestyle, if I want to be able to do this, I have to make it part of myself and really pay my dues, as it were.
yeah. And then another thing that people don't realize is there's a lot that's just straight boring.
Yeah.
It's not even necessarily. I mean, yes, it's difficult, and there's difficult parts, but there's a lot that's just boring. I've been in a survival situation before, and I didn't even realize it. It was I forget which truck I was in, but it broke down on the way out to the mine, and I had told Grandpa to expect me back Sunday. I think it was a Friday when I left. I was on the way out there, and it just broke down. No one's coming. You've been out there. There's good luck, you know.
Keep in mind, we
And
didn't.
oh yes, this is the thing. If we had a cell phone, you had to climb to the top of like Mount
Yeah.
Duncan or something like that and get get signal. Maybe if you were even walking distance there. Yeah. So alls I did was wait by the truck. Like alls I really did was just wait for like a day and a half and like wander around and catch lizards. And yeah, I mean I nibbled on a little bit of sage and some cactus seeds and like, you know, I had a bottle of water with me. Like it really was just boring. I didn't think that it's not like I thought I was in a survival situation. I just was waiting for Grandpa that day that he knew to come look for me. And he came and got me, and we pulled the truck out. And I'm like, later on, I'm like, that was a survival situation. And Bear Grylls didn't pop up out of the woods and like pee into a cup for me or anything. Like it was boring.
Yep.
It was boring and hot and miserable, and I just was cranky, and I didn't do anything cool. I didn't make a hut. I didn't,
Why I practice and do all those cool things that
yeah. Well, no, you find out you're in an area where there's nothing but rocks for miles and some chaparral and cholla cactus or something. Like you're not doing most of that stuff.
Why didn't you catch a rattlesnake and like pee in it and save it for later?
I know, man. Like, or just take its juices and cool myself down with its body juices or something. I don't know. Like,
Just this side note, I know that Bear Grylls was part of I believe it's the SAS or whatever, or
I don't know if that's actually true, but maybe. But SAS also isn't like, not Hugh Jackman. What's his name? Hugh Grant was part of the SAS too. Like,
oh well, yeah, that's true. It's true.
Yeah, it's kind of.
What I'm saying is, like, I would just for everybody's purposes, the Man vs. Wild stuff, the Bear Grylls, do not do that. Like,
For the most part. I mean, there's some things that are okay, but
yeah, like I would say probably 5% of it is good information, and the other 95% of it is that's how you die in a survival situation. Like,
people
I mean,
survive in spite of Bear Grylls' practices.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely take that stuff with a grain of salt. Take it as great entertainment value because it really is, but definitely not like you were saying the survival situation. For you it was just you were bored, frustrated, and sitting next to your truck in the middle of the desert. That's a survival situation. That's what it's going to be like. It's not necessarily going to be like this mad rush of daredevil stuff. I mean, that's how you die. One mistake and you're out there. You jump off a cliff into water that you don't know what's underneath. You're dead.
Mm-hmm.
You're dead. Think of that. Like he just like, oh yeah, I threw a rock and everything's no. And we came later to find out, that things were already checked. He had a whole camera crew there that would do stuff and all that stuff. But that's the thing is people took that and were like, oh yeah, that's what you do. No, it's not. Take the long way down. Avoid injury. Avoid cuts. It'll be bad.
I saw him do this thing where he climbed into a mine shaft because he was thinking he would find water at the bottom of that mine shaft. And the thing I would say was a good takeaway was he had found. We know they probably put him there because they looked immaculate and whatnot. No, didn't get impaled by slivers, but they were these kind of like railroad ties. They were these big posts, wood posts that were just laying around in the desert. I'm not saying that stuff doesn't exist, but like anyone who's ever actually kicked over stones in the desert, you find some piece of wood or something like that. That's been left over from the big mining eras. It's been sun bleached and rained on, and it's brittle and it's falling apart. It's dry rotted. It's really bad. It's not a good idea. But the technique he used to climb, where he would wedge, he took two and he had one where he'd wedge one in, and then he'd stand on that, and then wedge another one in under that, and then stand on that, and okay, legit climbing technique. But you're going to the bottom of a mine shaft to get water. Never mind the fact that chances are, if you're in a mine, if it's a mine shaft, there's other dead things that have made its way into the water that have
Yeah.
died from falling into that mine shaft. There's also gases like H2S and stuff like that that could exist down there, and there's mineral deposits that make their way down there in the form of poisons. So there's all sorts of reasons you don't want to drink that water anyways. Also, the risk of falling, and in the Mojave Desert, mine shafts are 6, 7, 900 feet, you know, down. They're very, very, very deep. And now I could see maybe wanting to learn that climbing technique in the event of your friend falls down and is hurt, and maybe it's worth that risk to save someone's life. You should probably still seek professional help, but we were 40 miles away from town. The Hazeltons were the professional help.
Yeah.
That's the best you were probably going to get. And sorry, but so what I'm saying is, okay, maybe there's a risk to reward there. My kid falls down a couple 100 feet into a hole, and I got to climb down there. You bet, I'm going to use that technique if I can to climb down there and get him. That's a different story, but. He's not showing it in that kind of a sense, in that context. He's showing it in I'm going to go down there and drink water, almost guaranteed to be poisonous water. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why, once again, it's just so important. Yes, study, books are a great resource. Videos can be a great resource, but go out and do it, actually see what it's like to have the feel of relying on yourself, to have the feel of timber in your hands, to have the feel of the fire warmth and feel what the cold is actually
smell of the fire. Oh, I love it.
Even beyond that though, like feel what exhaustion is like. I did a hunt. Now you know that I'm diabetic. It hit really hard just recently, but it wasn't as bad. I just started taking insulin, which, by the way, is a whole nother nightmare of trying to be an outdoorsman, because now that I need insulin, it's like, oh my gosh, like you have to take it all the time. I can't really be out for days and all that. I got to plan meals. It's difficult, but it's doable. I'm going to keep doing it because I love it. I've been getting in better shape and everything. But anyways, that being said, I was on a hunt. It was November, snow on the ground and everything, pretty cold. And we had hunted all day. About the middle of the day, we had gotten 3 deer. I was with some other guys. They had gotten 3 deer. Little doe comes out into the field like 70. I thought it was like 30 or 40 yards out. I had a 410 single shot, and so I took aim and I shot it. And they were like, "Oh, that's a great shot," And I was thinking it's like 30 yards, whatever. But we went and got her. Afterwards, I found out it was a 70-yard shot with a single shot 410. I was pretty proud of myself at that point.
That's pretty awesome. Slug, yeah. I'm assuming.
Yes, yeah, rifled slug. So anyways, he was looking at it through his scope when I shot it. He said it about caved in its shoulder because it had about lost momentum at that point. Mm-hmm. So anyways, we get it out and everything. Long story short, end of the day, we'd done all this stuff, gutted the deer and done all this stuff, and we're coming out, and my diabetes really affected me in the fact that I stopped being able to regulate my body temperature because my blood sugar got too low. Mm-hmm. I didn't eat. I did all this stuff, and so I start getting to the truck, and I mean, I'm shivering, like I feel like I'm gonna die. It was miserable. That kind of exhaustion, survival mode kicks in your head, and you're like, what am I gonna do? Fortunately, I did have a couple little snacks in the vehicle. I was praying that I would make it to the vehicle, because we were dragging deer and everything too when it hit me, and I was like, guys, I gotta go. And that was really rough, but it's important that, go out and push yourself a little bit, because you don't know how you're going to respond when you hit that exhaustion level. You don't know that you're going to be able to, what you're actually going to be able to do, what your limits are, and you're going to have all these expectations that are probably unrealistic. And unless if you know where your limit is, you're not going to really have a good chance of, surviving or accomplishing your task or those kind of things. And then before that, make sure that you train a lot to increase those limits.
Yeah, the more you train outside of doing these kinds of things, the more your capacity in general is going to be. So that could only help you, in that situation. I mean, this particular story is self-imposed. It's not smart. You don't do this, what I'm about to say. But I went elk hunting with my cousin, and he's like right now he's an arborist, but at the time he was a lumberjack. So this dude lives in the Colorado woods. I mean, every single day. Even right now, he's a certified arborist. He works on trees. He's like a tree doctor. But before that, he was a lumberjack, and he specialized in identifying beetle kills and doing cleanup for that. So he's used to this. Like, this is. I wish that I could say the woods was like my home like this, but this dude, it's his home. So what do we do? What do you do in your home? You have a beer or whatever, right? Well, he brought this honey whiskey, and we're camping, and I had actually forgotten my sleeping bag, but we're camping the first night, and that stuff went down like candy. I'm at altitude. We're at about 9,000 feet where we were camping, and it goes down like candy, and I drank way more than I thought I would, and way faster than I should have. And at the altitude, it was like, I woke up the next morning just like I couldn't function hardly at all. I managed to get packed back up when we got to where we were actually going to hunt, because it was an overnight hike to get there. And then the next 2.5 days, we spent trying to track down elk. And if I was down where the trees were, I was good. It's like that level of oxygen is pretty good for me, But the moment that we had to go up to the top of the tree line to even glass around, and then we realized that the elk had gone up and over an unofficial 14er. So 14ers, to those who don't know, are 14,000 foot or more mountains. So this is one that is really close to 14, but depending on how they're measuring it, they don't know for sure if it's 14. So it can be like 13.8 or like 14.1 or something like that. And once I got above the tree line, it was like I took like 4 steps up above the actual top of the tree in the elevation, and just the color went out of my face. I just couldn't like function at all. I was like, dude, we're not getting anything, man. Like, this is going to be bad. I cannot do this. And I'm like, it's obviously self-imposed, but that's kind of a similar thing. Like, what if you're impaired in that way? What if you're sick? What if you came up with the flu while you were, in a survival situation? That's probably similar. Probably feeling similar, like a really bad hangover and the flu. And then you're up in a 13, you're up at 12,000 feet at where the tree line was, it's tough. And then it's like, man, I had the option of turning around and going home. What if I didn't,
Yeah.
What if I didn't have that option to be like, oh, I'm just going to go back down there and camp and eat some fish or whatever and like recoup? What if you don't have that option? What if you slip and twist your ankle, and you're stuck up there and you got to figure something out,
Well, and I mean, I think that's the bottom line, and that kind of what I wanted to focus on with this video anyway. So I appreciate you kind of working with this. Is go out and do it.
Yeah.
Go out and do it, increments at a time, but go out and do it. Don't just watch the videos. If you have to disable or something, and this is your way of getting out, I'm so happy that we can provide that for you. But if you're coming out and you're like, you're watching what we do, and you're like, oh, I can do that because I saw them do it on YouTube, or I heard them talk about it. It's so vitally important that don't just do that. Go out and actually do it. Take some time, and it can start off really small. Go spend a half an hour in the woods. Go spend a half an hour on a lake. Actually get involved. I mean, another thing, skill that I found that was so necessary to actually do myself, and so many people try to get out of this, is processing your own food. when you get it, like whether it's gutting a deer or cleaning a fish or any of those things. Like that's a skill that you have to actually do because you're gonna get up there and, oh, I watch people do this, it's fine, and then you're just gonna be lost
Yeah, you're gonna
because
hold that knife in your hand and be like, okay,
yeah, because it matters, right? I mean, you
yeah,
puncture that stomach, or you have to know, like with fish, it doesn't really matter if you get the guts all over the meat. You kind of like wash it off and it's good. But like with deer, it's very important that you don't puncture anything. You cut the right spots and everything else. And so, I mean, bottom line, if you love the outdoors, if you love the idea of going and doing outdoors, just go out and do it. Whatever it is that you're going to do, get out in the woods, get out on the mountain in your case, get out to the lake or river and do this stuff because you're gonna not only are you gonna find out, it's probably a lot more than you expected, but you're going to have a more profound respect for really just your surroundings and really your life in general because you're going to find out how actually fragile it can be.
yeah. There's a saying that we have in martial arts, and this is one of the parallels that martial arts has with outdoors, and this is one reason why a lot of talking to me about people talk to me, it ends up going to martial arts because you can see this parallel, and this is one, and it's to leave your ego at the door.
Yep.
Put your ego elsewhere. You got to understand there's zero shame in not knowing something. So get out with people who know. If you can be if you can start off and not alone, that's the best way. I'm not saying don't go walk by a river by yourself at the same time. Like I'm also very a primal person where I'm like, yeah, I want to go on nature walks alone and stuff like that. But at the same time, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're fishing, you're probably good to do that alone, right? You can sit by the lake and fish. But like a lot of people are getting into foraging. Well, that one you should probably the books, they're great, but they're not enough.
No.
This is where having someone who knows in that area is really important. I have a really good example. I have the book that if you watch Into the Wild about that McCandless kid that
Hmm.
died up in Alaska in that bus by eating the wrong thing. Now I don't know if it's the same book he had, but it was the same book they had on that movie. I have that same book, and it's a pretty good edible plant book. But in that book, if I remember right, it says that there's uh, like if you look up a plant, it has like poisonous lookalikes,
Hold
and
on a second. Sorry about bugging you, but my wife's got
yeah,
to go to work and I need to get my sugar before she heads out. So love you, honey. So yeah, beautiful wife Julie. Most of our
hi
viewers.
Julie.
Yeah, she works in Cadillac. So, but yes, you are so vital. Keep
So
going.
like this is a specific example. You can get that same book. I should probably go grab it. It's right in the other room. It says that like Angelica and like parsnips, like cow parsnip and stuff, don't have any poisonous lookalikes. But in the back of the book, it says no poisonous lookalikes. Those look very similar at certain stages. Now, don't get me wrong, the parsnip's going to get huge,
Yeah.
you know, but they look very similar. They got the umbel flower and stuff, and Angelica is like one of my favorite flowers. It looks like this princess cut diamond. I think it's a cool looking flower, and but literally, hemlock is a parsnip. It's in the same family, and it has umbel flowers. And it smells the same. They say, well, one of the ways you identify hemlock is that it smells like parsnip. It's because it's actually a parsnip. And so to have a book that's a good book, I will say that it is a decent book. It's not, to say that this author did anything wrong per se. And I'll explain why in a little bit, but there's it'll say no poisonous lookalikes, but there's poisonous lookalikes, and it's literally like the most poisonous plant in the upper hemisphere. There's no cure for it. Like there's no antidote or nothing. You're out. And the reason why I say that that's okay on the author's point is because there is so much information in regards to plant foraging. It's impossible to include everything in any one book. It would be bonkers. And they're watching these plants evolve right in front of us too. So,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff is different now.
There is one mushroom out here that I think it grows where you're at too, that mimics, I think, 4 different types of mushrooms to the untrained eye. That in most of these mushrooms that are it mimics, uh, don't aren't considered to have a look-alike. But I'll tell you what, it's super easy to confuse them with this mushroom, and I'm talking about jack-o'-lantern mushrooms. They actually glow a little bit at night. Um,
I gotta see that, man. That'd be cool.
it's super faint. It's super faint. So it's not
Right.
like don't be expecting like the luminescence or anything. It's just got a
Right.
super faint glow, and you can see it at night. But generally, they can look like stumpers or honey mushrooms, which grow around stumps because they grow around stumps too, and have a similar look to them. They can look like chanterelles because sometimes they don't grow around stumps, and they actually both have kind of like a sloped in cap. I mean, you can tell a very large difference when you know what you're looking for. But when you to the untrained eye, someone's like, "Oh, I found chanterelles." No, you didn't. Don't eat that. Uh, you know.
Yeah, I
Um,
know so little about mushrooms, man.
I've just recently started really getting into it. I mean, I guess Julie and I have spent the last 4 years becoming experts, and in our best time that we got to really understand and start eating mushrooms was when I went out with somebody who's an expert in the local area. I went out with him. He showed me a whole bunch of stuff, and now I'm confident in honey mushrooms, chanterelles, black trumpets, oysters. Oyster mushrooms are phenomenal. Morels, obviously, we've always done morels.
Right.
So,
I mean, morels are one of the easiest ones to like, if get into it. If you're wanting to get into mushroom picking, as I understand it, it seems
morels,
like everyone does.
well, morels, there's some variants, but not crazy. Chicken of the woods is one of the ones that's really easy to know, but even that can be mistaken with the jack-o'-lantern, and that's what's so crazy about it. Jack-o'-lanterns, they look very specific, but when you're just keying into like the key features of a chicken of the woods mushroom, it's an orange shelf mushroom, but it has very variations even in its own species that look a little bit different. So you could look at it and go, "Oh, I think that's jack-o'-lantern or not jack-o'-lantern, chicken of the woods," and it's actually a jack-o'-lantern. Not good. You're going to get violently sick. So yeah, what you're saying is totally true. Go out with an expert. Even fishing though, like you said, you can go fishing by yourself. You can, but if you want to be successful, if it's something you want to learn, there are techniques, there are things that only really come across really well when you have a personal teacher. The video I just did with my dad, he had.
Oh, I just watched it, and that was a cool video too.
Oh,
Just
right
saying.
on, thanks, man. Yeah, so he had used bait casters in the past. He bought them, and they're kind of expensive, and then he instantly got rid of them because he couldn't figure out how to do it. In 5 minutes, 10 minutes of me showing him, hey, this is how you do it, he was already starting to be able to cast, and he started to get that bug of, now I want to catch a fish with this. It's something, it's so important to, like you said, check your ego. In Bible college, we said have a learner's heart. That was the mandate that we always said, is just try to have a learner's heart because it's going to make your life better. It goes with wisdom and everything. It's actually a very biblical concept, and it's so stinking true. Be willing to learn. Be excited to learn from somebody.
Yeah, and and again, martial arts. We also call it the white belt mentality. You
Yeah,
know, just remember that you're here to learn, and especially with a martial art like jujitsu, it's like no matter how good you get, it's like you think you wrapped your head around it, and then someone comes in and blows your mind with some new information. And the wilderness is exactly the same way. You go into one tiny little area, like right down here, we're in the flats. We're down on like the I-25 corridor in Colorado. I can go to like the Thompson Ponds, and I can discover stuff I've never seen before. Like
yep.
I just learned a whole bunch about salamander habitats like last year that I never thought about. And it's cool to think about how it fits in with the other animals and the plants and everything like that. And then I'm sitting there, it makes me think about other things, and I'm like, oh, they tore down that whole salamander habitat to build a Bass Pro Shops, ironically enough, like, and they, because of the way, I could get into it, but like because of the way that they zone areas as wetlands and stuff. Out
Mhm.
here, stuff is wetlands for like a month sometimes out of the year, and then if somebody goes and inspects it like later, they'll say it's not a wetland.
Gotcha.
And meanwhile, they mow over a bunch of amphibians. And so it just makes me think in all sorts of different. It'll blow your mind the more you get out there and learn about nature and wilderness. And I learn a lot just gardening in my backyard.
I will say, I honor the sacrifice of those salamanders for giving us another, adult man's Disneyland. So here's,
Yeah, yeah. Bass Pro.
I'm joking.
Actually, they ended up not building a Bass Pro, but we got a Shields, and we got these Jack Sporting Goods and Sportsman's Warehouses and stuff. We got lots of that stuff here.
Right on.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Remember the first time we went to the one off of Blue Diamond in
Oh,
Vegas?
yep.
That was crazy. We're like, this is amazing. I could live here.
It was incredible. It's so much fun doing that. Go to a cool outdoor store. It is, especially when you really get the bug for being outdoors. It is like Disneyland for a second. There's so much stuff, but then you realize it's so expensive.
Oh yeah, when you actually go to buy it, I mean, yeah. Well, another thing is here. I don't know if it's always been this way here, but I get the feeling it hasn't. There's we got three or four different chains of outdoor stores here, and a lot of them will compete in the same areas of town. So it's almost everywhere you go, you could go to one store like that or close to it. You know, like at least Sportsman's or bigger.
Mhm.
There's one in every town here, and I want to be like telling some of these kids, like these teenagers and stuff. I'm like, once upon a time, it wasn't like that. You'd have to go to the gas station and get some bait and deal with whatever lures or bait maybe they had, because that's where you could
Yeah.
walk to, because you couldn't drive from Boulder City into Henderson because we were 12, and
Yep.
maybe we'd hop on the bus and waste 4 hours out of our day just to swing into a Walmart, or Kmart,
Yep.
because remember the bus would go right by the Kmart.
Yep.
Kmart used to be a thing. Like you guys don't remember, you guys don't know, like you guys got the coolest stuff at your fingertips now.
I'm feeling old. How about you?
Uh, yeah, I watched Fresh Prince, like the first few episodes of Fresh Prince the other day, and was like, dude, Will Smith is older than um, uncle, than his uncle in that
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
He's older than him now.
Yep. Is it Phil? No.
Uncle Phil, yeah, it was Uncle Phil. Will is older than Uncle Phil now.
Ouch.
Yeah, we're as far away from the 80s now as the 80s was from the 40s.
Oh. That hurt.
Yeah.
Uh, man. Oh well, it is what it is. We're getting old.
Oh, here's one. Here's one. This is even an old story now. So years ago, I could describe it this way. Years ago, Raven had never seen Jurassic Park. And we were like, oh, come on, man, this is a great movie, right? So I went to the last Blockbuster in Colorado to rent Jurassic Park. And they didn't have like a picture of it. It was like a paper with like a Sharpie, and it would say whatever it was. So I didn't see it at first. I'm looking for the Jurassic Park logo. I didn't see it. And I asked them, they found it for me, and I'm like, what's this number? And the number was the date that it came out at like 1993 or something.
Yeah.
I was like,
93.
man, I'm like, if that was a kid at that time, they'd be like applying for colleges. And this was several years ago now.
Yeah. Yep. It's happening.
Yep.
But Well, hey, let's end on that note, and maybe next month's when we do this again, we'll do it obviously on your channel, and pick a topic and we'll hit it. I just really, like I said, wanted to get the topic of getting out and doing it and having experience behind the knowledge,
Yes, absolutely.
and but hey, guys, go and subscribe to the Travis Show.